Please explain in detail about AP U.S. government and politics on required Supreme cases. 13 Roe v. Wade, 1973 Selective Incorporation. 14 Brown v. Board of Ed. 1954 Equal Protection. And 15 Citizens United v. F.E.C. 2010 campaigns. AP U.S. Government and Politics is an advanced course that covers a wide range of topics relating to the United States government and political system. The course places significant emphasis on several landmark Supreme Court cases, which have shaped American political and legal history. Among these are Roe v. Wade, 1973, Brown v. Board of Education, 1954, and Citizens United v. F.E.C., 2010. These cases demonstrate the court's role in interpreting the Constitution and addressing key issues in American society. 13 Roe v. Wade, 1973, Selective Incorporation. Roe v. Wade was a landmark decision by the United States Supreme Court, which established a woman's legal right to have an abortion under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. The case involved a pregnant woman, known under the pseudonym Jane Roe, who sued the District Attorney of Dallas County, Texas, Henry Wade, for the right to terminate her pregnancy. The court's 7-2 decision, written by Justice Harry Blackmun, held that the right to privacy, which was protected by the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause, encompassed a woman's decision to have an abortion. The court ruled that the right to privacy was broad enough to encompass a woman's decision whether or not to terminate her pregnancy. As a result, the court struck down Texas's anti-abortion laws as unconstitutional. The decision in Roe v. Wade established a framework for evaluating abortion restrictions, known as the trimester framework. Under this framework, the state's interest in regulating abortions increases as the pregnancy progresses. During the first trimester, the state has limited interest in regulating abortions, while during the second trimester, the state may regulate abortions to protect the mother's health. During the third trimester, when the fetus is considered viable, the state may regulate or even ban abortions, except when necessary to protect the life or health of the mother. 14 Brown v. Board of Education, 1954. Equal Protection. Brown v. Board of Education was a landmark Supreme Court case that declared racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional, thereby overturning the separate but equal doctrine established in the 1896 case Plessy v. Ferguson. The decision involved multiple cases from different states, which were consolidated under the name Brown v. Board of Education. The court, under the leadership of Chief Justice Earl Warren, ruled unanimously that segregation in public schools violated the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. The court argued that segregated schools were inherently unequal, even if the physical facilities and resources were similar, because they perpetuated a sense of inferiority among African American children. The court's decision in Brown v. Board of Education was a turning point in American civil rights history, as it marked the beginning of the end of legalized racial segregation in the United States. The decision led to desegregation efforts across the country, including the use of busing and other methods to integrate schools. However, it also faced significant resistance, especially in the South, and the struggle for desegregation continued for decades after the decision. 15 Citizens United v. F.E.C., 2010. Campaigns. Citizens United v. Federal Election Commission was a controversial Supreme Court case that dealt with the regulation of campaign spending by organizations. In a 5-4 decision, the court held that the First Amendment prohibited the government from restricting independent political expenditures by corporations, labor unions, and other associations. The case stemmed from a documentary film, Hillary, the movie, produced by the conservative nonprofit organization Citizens United. The Federal Election Commission, F.E.C., barred the organization from advertising or airing the film during the 2008 election cycle, citing the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act, BCRA, which limited the use of corporate and union funds for electioneering communications. Citizens United challenged the F.E.C.'s decision, arguing that the BCRA's provisions violated their First Amendment rights. The Supreme Court, in an opinion written by Justice Anthony Kennedy, agreed with Citizens United, holding that the BCRA's restrictions on independent political expenditures were unconstitutional. The court reasoned that the First Amendment protects not just individual speech, but also the speech of associations, including corporations and labor unions. Consequently, the government could not limit their independent expenditures in support of or opposition to political candidates. The decision in Citizens United versus F.E.C. significantly altered the landscape of campaign finance in the United States. It opened the door to unlimited spending by corporations, unions, and other associations, leading to the rise of super PACs, political action committees, and the proliferation of dark money in American politics. Critics argue that the ruling has allowed wealthy individuals and organizations to have a disproportionate influence on elections and public policy, while supporters maintain that it protects free speech rights. In summary, the AP U.S. Government and Politics course delves into various key Supreme Court cases that have had a significant impact on the United States political and legal landscape. Roe v. Wade, 1973, established a woman's right to abortion under the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause. Brown v. Board of Education, 1954, invalidated racial segregation in public schools by invoking the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. And Citizens United versus F.E.C., 2010, struck down restrictions on independent political expenditures by corporations, unions, and other associations based on First Amendment grounds. These cases highlight the importance of the Supreme Court in interpreting the Constitution and addressing critical issues in American society.